Next up is to look for patterns. There are always reasons for anxiety, and whether that comes from internal stresses, so within the body, or external stresses. It is wise to look for the patterns that lead to that place of that yucky feeling of anxiety. So, as the researchers have shown, there is 4 kind of guideposts to look for along this road that often happens to getting to this place. One of those is thoughts. So, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, you might have heard of, they focus on that. If you change the thought or change the behavior, so what you're doing, it then in turn changes the feeling. So if you don't like the feeling you're getting, the focus needs to be on changing the thought or changing the behavior. So try to identify what thoughts lead to that place of anxiety. Another one is the self-talk. So I like to think of that as the itty bitty pity committee in your head. We've all got a resourceful voice in our head that encourages us and pushes us to try new things that are safe. And we also have the other side, which is usually louder and more prolific. And like I said, I call that the itty bitty pity committee, which is always talking and dribbling. And that's a good thing to identify what self-talk leads to this experience. Another one is beliefs. So challenge the assumptions that you make about people, places, and things. Challenge the beliefs that you have about life and the process of it. A lot of this happens unconsciously. So trying to let this bubble up to the surface and be aware of some of the stuff that you take for granted, some of the things that you believe and that you assume can be a good thing in breaking this cycle of just zipping to this place super quick. You can get off the train about here and go, oh, hello, that's an interesting belief I have about blah, blah, and then evaluate that. Another one is images. The brain responds very directly to what it sees. That old expression, out of sight, out of mind. If you flip that around, in sight, in mind. So whatever you surround yourself with and the images that you expose yourself to can trigger this place. So that's the first step there. The second is consider if these are helpful or not. So are your thoughts helpful or not? Is your self-talk resourceful or not? Evaluate each one, and then obviously you can take action on that. So then how realistic or accurate are these thoughts? It's a really good thing to challenge yourself. Quite often our thoughts can feel very, very real. But remember, your brain is a thought generator, and some of them are useful, some of them are not. And so it's good to be the judge and the jury and ask yourself, is that a very realistic thought? Or is that a very accurate thought? How do I know that that thought is true? Or are you doing some mind reading, which these are some of the ways that our thoughts cannot help us when they are focused around these things. So are you blaming yourself? Which we all do, but it's generally not resourceful at some point in our life. Blaming others just as much. So if you're pointing the finger, if you do that right now, you notice that the majority of your fingers are actually pointing back at you. So it's always good to look at what you can do and what you can change. Mind reading. I know that they think that I blah blah. So mind reading is very dangerous because unless you actually know what someone is thinking because you ask them, you probably don't actually know what they're thinking. As much as we like to think that we can mind read others, it's generally highly inaccurate. So be sure to challenge mind reading. They looked at me this way, and that means that they knew that I blah blah. Yeah, see, it's all mind reading. Jumping to conclusions. Some people get a lot of exercise in this arena. They do a lot of jumping to conclusions. And so definitely just watch how quickly you can make judgments. Predicting the future. Well, that one's pretty straightforward. Confirming your bias. Confirming your bias means that you are confirming your own beliefs without necessarily challenging them with knowledge. So that's well worth having a bit of a ponder about whether you are biased or not, And also all or nothing thinking can often trigger us to this place of anxiety. So all or nothing thinking, the example here is everyone all the time, but there's such language as nobody cleans up when they blah blah, everybody thinks that I'm blah blah, yeah, so nobody, everybody, they always, they never, it happens all the time. And so you can challenge yourself, really, all the time? Everyone? Have you met everyone? I mean, everyone's a lot of people. You must have gotten around. Nobody. No one at all. Ever. At any point. Interesting. So challenge the thoughts that you have in your head. Play that little game to challenge that all or nothing thinking. These 3 points here, excuse them being sideways. If this was a hard copy, you could just flip that around. These are the 3 top ways to challenge poor thinking that leads to that place. So examine the evidence. Ask yourself, is there any evidence to support this thought that I'm having right now? Is there any evidence to support this thought? Or have I mind read, predicted the future, just confirmed my own silliness, etc.? Second one here says, check for a double standard. Very easy to do. I don't know about you, but I'm very good at fooling myself. So it's excellent to challenge where you might be a bit hypocritical. So would I judge myself or somebody else as harshly if they did the same? So whatever it is that's going on at that time, ask yourself, would you judge yourself as harshly if you did the same? Or would you judge somebody else as harshly if they did the same? And the third one here is to phone a friend to get external input, whether that be to get good advice, whether that be an expert, so an allied health professional or a medical health professional, mental health professional, or it could just be a parent, friend, someone older and wiser than you are, someone who has possibly experienced what you've experienced before and has moved through it. So ask someone who isn't biased, very important, won't just agree and be nice, which is a biggie, and is also trustworthy to check if you're jumping to conclusions. So examine the evidence, check for a double standard, and phone a friend.